Recent bombings in New York City and New Jersey have Americans concerned. The current amount of terror attacks brings up the question, does the American government prevent these assaults to the best of its ability? I spoke to Tyler Yaski, a New York native, about his thoughts.
We have like the Patriot Act where people's privacy is being violated to prevent things like this. So then you think like, should my privacy be violated? When despite that, these attacks are still happening, are there better ways to go about it? A bombing is a bombing.
The USA Patriot Act stands for Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism. The controversial act came into effect under George W. Bush in 2001. Although it remains a privacy concern for American people, the NSA stands by it and says that it has stopped multiple terrorist acts. For JR 103, this is Alex Mkoski.
Recently, Russian officials warned the U.S. not to interfere in Syria. They say it will have negative consequences across the Middle East. Here is Ted Leach looks into the U.S. current administration of handling Middle East.
It's been terrible. When you have millions of people fleeing and hundreds of thousands of people being killed, how else would you describe it? We had a stable environment relatively until, in the case of the United States, taking the troops out of Iraq. It might have been a mistake going in, but it was a bigger mistake taking them out. It gave rise to ISIS.
Thomas Smith, a college professor, holds the same perspective.
I'm not too sure what their position is on the Middle East. I think they dropped the ball on a lot of things. I don't think they actually know what's going on in Syria. I don't think they're dealing with the Russians very good with this. President Obama kept drawing a line, but he never did anything about it.
The U.S. has already spent $6 trillion dealing with the Middle East, and we don't know how much more we need to spend. For JR 103, this is Fiona Chen.
Just last week, a major act of terrorism rocked New York City and the New Jersey shore. In the wake of the tragic bombings that took place, Donna Lee spoke of the growing wariness she feels towards such attacks.
I'm almost numb to it right now, that it seems to happen so much. I'm concerned that 2 or 3 always happen at once, and then you have a peaceful period, and the uncertainty is kind of scary. I don't read a lot of the news because I'd rather not know at this point.
The explosion that staggered New York Chelsea's neighborhood injured 29 civilians. No one was injured in the New Jersey bombings along the route of a 5K charity race. The attacks come amid recent streams of terrorist acts around the nation and the world. With New York just finishing its ceremony to honor the victims of 9/11, the city proved its resiliency once more by resolving to stay strong.
After another series of terrorist attacks in the New York City area, the question remains, why? While some focus on the religion of the assailants, Kansas-based writer Philip Longman attributes these attacks to psychosis.
We have this growing trend of individual people without really traditional ties to terrorist groups or ideologies becoming radicalized over the internet, and it's not even a matter of them adopting that ideology so much as placing a veneer of that ideology over an independent desire to hurt people.
According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, a domestic terrorist attack occurs every 34 days. 75% of these committed by leaderless lone wolves. Reporting for JR 103, I'm Jonathan House.
On September 29, 2016, a commuter train crashed during rush hour at Hoboken Terminal in New Jersey. This collision comes in the wake of a fatal New Jersey bus crash that left 2 dead in August. The accidents raised concerns about the funding that the government invests into public infrastructure. Duncan Bachicchio, a Los Angeles native, has not adjusted to using public transport in Boston, citing its unreliability as his main reason.
I feel like it's never there when I need it. They stopped the late night service, which is the main time I was using it, and commuting to campus during the winter is like always a struggle, because you never know if the train's going to be on time or like even there at all.
He currently primarily uses services such as Lyft and Uber, but says the government reinvesting in the late night transit service can make him reconsider. Prandeep Singh, who hails from Bristol in the United Kingdom, uses the metro on a daily basis and believes that no matter what, misfortune is simply bound to occur at one point or another.
The entire city is on tubes and stuff. It's pretty busy, but they're well organized, they take care of some stuff. But it's weird, like it's same everywhere, like, good and bad things happens everywhere.
The Hoboken terminal crash leaves 1 person dead and 114 others injured. The cause of the crash remains unclear, but the investigation continues.
A few weeks back, another terrorist attack shook the New York City and New Jersey communities. Antonio Caban, a Jersey native and college student in Boston, explains his fear of having to leave his home during this troubled time.
It made me feel scared because I have family in Jersey, and me coming up to Boston, leaving Jersey behind, and that just happening, it makes me feel kind of frightening because I have to leave my mom behind. My mom is kind of not doing so well.
According to the Daily Journal in one poll this year, 51% of Americans said they worry that terrorism could harm someone in their family. After remembering the brutal attacks on 9/11 15 years ago and the attacks in Paris and Brussels, the fear of terror still remains fresh in the minds of the American people. For Emerson College, this is Carl Capon signing off.
The New York and New Jersey bombings are causing the nation to further look at the issue of terrorism, especially with the recent commemoration of 9/11 and the upcoming election. Matilda Badecru told us her perspective on terrorism after reflecting over these bombings.
In the West especially, there's a bit more terrorist attacks in the media. And these events, bombings, happen every day in every part of the world. It's just that for us, we're not used to it, and we're only right now waking up and opening our eyes. I think it's because of certain anti-immigration policies that have been made recently, and that's why we're targeted.
Ahmed Rahami was arrested for the bombings, being charged with several crimes including the use of weapons of mass destruction and bombing a place of public use. I'm Ruby Vishnik for JR 103.